My wife, Sarah, 39 female, has a son, Christopher, 20 male, from her previous marriage. Because of how my wife and I got together, there was a lot of strife in her divorce from her ex, and there was a lot of tumult in Christopher's life, and he was only 8 at the time. For a few years, my wife tried her best and tried everything to help him, but it was like the more she tried, the further away he got. It came to a head when he was 12, and she caught him trying to smoke, and then he almost broke her jaw when she tried to stop him. After that, she stopped trying to force the custody and just let him stay with his dad. When he was 14 and we had our son, she told him that his brother was born and that even if he didn't want to be around her, it didn't mean he couldn't love his brother. He just responded with, "Go screw yourself." She tried the same thing 3 years later when our daughter was born, but got no response this time. Well, 2 days ago, she got a call from her ex, and he was crying. And apparently, Christopher is dying. He has cancer, and they found it very late. Andy's optimistically only got a month left, and he's been begging to see her. So I've told my wife to go and spend the month with him. She can work online for a month, take a leave, or quit if they don't understand. However, she's refused, and she's used everything from work to needing to take care of our kids to even, what if it's just a trick to hurt me more, as excuses not to go. At the same time, she keeps crying, muttering about thinking she had more time, ignoring our kids, and looking at old photo albums of her and Christopher. It came to a head this morning when I caught her having a breakdown in her car before going to work. I begged her to reconsider when I saw, and she called me an idiot for trying to push her into going. I know he's not my son, and that I have no right over him, but not going is tearing Sarah apart. So am I the idiot for telling my wife to go and see her son before it's too late? A mother should never abandon her child, even at the risk of being hurt. She needs to grow up, be a mother, and see that boy. If he wants to hurt her again before he dies, who cares? If there's even the slightest chance her child needs her, then she better well step up and go to him. She's 100% a selfish idiot for hesitating on this. As his mom, her only job is to love him, no matter what. You're not the idiot for encouraging her to see him. She is an idiot and as selfish as a person can be. OP, support her no matter what her decision is. I presume she cheated on her husband with you, and that's why the son wants nothing to do with her, which is understandable, especially for a kid. However, she will regret not saying goodbye to her son for the rest of her life if she doesn't do it now, while she still can. Going is just more challenging to do. Not going is easier, but it will haunt her forever because she'll never know how it would have gone. She needs to get closure and say goodbye. I don't care if it was infidelity, but you were never in her shoes to experience all of this. It's her choice. Can I make a recommendation? Or a couple? Why on God's earth can't they have a phone call or a few before any visitation is planned? Your wife is very aware he could use this visit as an opportunity to be hateful to her, so I can see why she's hesitating. What if she does go, and the last thing she hears from him is something terrible? At least a phone call between them could at least set a tone. If you can convince her to visit, why don't you initially volunteer to go with her? You don't have to visit, but you could be with her for the trip. If she decides to stay longer, you could come home. Thank you for having some actual sanity. Some broken bonds are better off broken, and nothing can fix them. It's his wife's choice and only hers. Why does she have to stop her life for someone who chose to have no relationship with her for years other than to be angry and aggressive? Phone call, video call. If things seem good, consider a short trip. Society's too quick to push the family narrative that you always have to forgive and forget. There are plenty of estrangements out there that are safe and beneficial. Update. When our kids were born, it was not the only 2 times my wife tried to reach out and ask if he was ready to see her. It's just when our son was born was the only time that he responded. She tried until his graduation, when even his father tried to get him to invite her. She sent him money, presents, and everything for his birthdays. As for the incident when he was 12, he did so with a hockey stick and then kicked her when she fell. She forgave him for that because she knew what he was going through and he was her child, but she decided to stop seeing him then because she didn't want her presence in his life to make him more mad. She took him to therapy. She tried so much, but he was non-responsive then. Thanks for your advice. I, 35 male, work 11-hour days from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. My work is exhausting, and I'm typically constantly busy for those 11 hours, except for a half-hour lunch break. My wife, 33, is a stay-at-home mom who cares for our preschooler and toddler. Her routine is less hectic than mine. For the past 4 years, as soon as I get home around 6:30, I would immediately start helping with dinner. My wife and I eat a later dinner than our kids, and helping taking care of the kids. Once the kids were asleep, I had to work from home until I went to sleep. I was okay with this, even though I was exhausted because I understood that sacrifices had to be made. However, I am now completely burning out. I told my wife that I need an hour to myself when I get home from work to unwind, so I'm not in a permanent state of stress and exhaustion. I have zero free time on weekdays. I offered to allow her a break from 7:30 to 8:30 while I put the kids to bed, but she didn't like that idea, since it would mean my only time with the kids was when I put them to bed, and then she would never be involved. I understand her perspective, but I also can't keep continuing like this. I need an hour off to do my own thing so I don't go crazy. My wife thinks that the most important thing is me spending some time with the children, not just putting them to sleep, and that we need to make sacrifices for the next few years until they become more independent. I still haven't budged from my request since I'm in a state of burnout. Am I the idiot? You work 11-hour days and work from home before you go to bed? So 12 to 14 hours daily? Why? What do you do? The problem is not your wife, it's your job. It may be time to cut the work time, not the family time. That's ridiculous. You're an idiot to yourself. Yeah, he better make enough money to pay for a helper for his wife. But that aside, how is he even spending time with his wife? Is that even a relationship? Are people just okay living like this? Bro, the problem here is the work hours. You can't keep working yourself to death, OP. I have a buddy with a similar work-home life schedule. Last Tuesday, his preteen daughter was hit by a car at the park and didn't make it. He was at work when it happened. He didn't get a chance to see her before she passed. I've only spoken to him once since because he's not in his right mind right now and is entirely disconnected. But when I spoke to him, he said he would give anything to have the last year back. He barely saw his daughter. He left before she woke up and got home after she went to sleep. You need to find a work-home balance, dude. You're not the idiot, but consider what your wife is saying. Decompression is necessary, but you have to spend time with your family somewhere. Tomorrow's never guaranteed for anyone, and on the final pages, no one wishes they spent more time at work. Context. I, 36 female, live next door to new tenants who moved in some 6 months ago, and they have a toddler. He shrieks at all times of the day and does the whole throwing himself on the ground tantrum thing multiple times a day. Due to the hybrid work model, I work from home 3 days a week. It's becoming a regular occurrence to have numerous instances of managers or clients asking why there's a child crying. Over the weekend, I met my neighbors upstairs, and she asked me if I too woke up early in shock. Context. Last Saturday, the whole building woke up at 5:45 a.m. because the child was screaming, and it went on for a good 20 minutes. The child is healthy, regularly see the child in the play area and the street. The mother is a stay-at-home mom. There's no neglect. The child is well looked after. He attends a play school in the mornings, but has yet to go this week. Now on to what happened today. I'm working on something critical while handing off my responsibilities due to a transition and have back-to-back calls. Over 4 hours, I had to keep pausing my call. At one point, an important client in another continent asked me if I needed to be excused to take care of my child and if I should reschedule the call. Another person on the call chimed in with the sentence, "We should not be neglecting a child because our call is running long." I apologized to them and informed them that that was my neighbor's child. They mentioned how it sounds like it's happening in my house. After the call ended, I went out to the balcony and in a very respectful way, asked the mother if the child was unwell. She didn't like it and asked why. I asked her again if the baby was unwell and she said no. She mentioned she took something away he was trying to eat, and that's why he was crying. I explained to her what happened on my calls and she snapped, "He's a baby. What do you expect?" I asked her if I didn't talk to the child's mother, who else would I speak to? I explained to her that I completely understand the challenges of being a mother, and I'm sure it's overwhelming, but it happens so often daily, it's not letting me focus. She started crying. Am I the idiot? I'm going to lean to no idiots here, but this isn't something you need to be involving yourself with. Tell the landlord it's up to them to enforce solutions to noise problems. That way it's documented, and if other people complain, it can be dealt with more directly. Also, having said that, it isn't that normal. Kids are loud and yeah, they scream sometimes, but not constantly, unless something's wrong. And that reaction says mom knows it's a problem, but doesn't know what to do. If she had it under control, she'd be apologetic. Contact building management or your landlord. Ask yourself, what would you do if it was this noisy from a different source? If your neighbor was loudly playing music or yelling, or had an animal barking constantly, it is very clearly a violation of any noise policy your building definitely has. You're allowed to have peace in your own unit. It's not an unreasonable expectation. I think people get all twisted around because it's just a kid. I know it sounds heartless, but I wish we had child-free apartment buildings. Peak delusional take. You can easily stop playing music by pressing a button, unlike how toddlers work. People are not entitled to their apartment always being an ideal workspace. There is no right to perfect work-from-home conditions. Daytime noise is standard for apartment, urban, and suburban living. If you want more quiet, go into the actual office or move to the middle of nowhere. So I, male 23, recently had a significant argument with my wife, 25. The background. My wife and I got married last year, and just over a week ago, we became parents to a beautiful little girl. She comes from a single-parent family and was raised without any siblings by her mother. They're very close, and my mother-in-law and I get along well. On the other hand, I come from a large family with 5 siblings, and my parents raised me. My mother adores children and loves having them around. Every grandchild she has, she treats like her own. However, my mother and my wife don't get along very well. They're respectful in each other's presence, but don't have a strong connection. My wife made it clear that she didn't want my mother to visit us in the hospital, which I understood, given my mother's enthusiasm, especially with new grandchildren. I thought it was fair, since my wife was the one going through the hard work, and I was there to support her, not make demands. Here's where things get complicated. The delivery was painful and had several complications, lasting over 40 hours. My wife was exhausted afterward and was given medication to help her sleep. She was deeply asleep. During this time, I received a text from my mother, who lives nearby, asking how it went and if she could visit. I agreed but suggested we meet in a hospital's visiting area since my wife was resting. I took my daughter and met up with my mother, and they stayed for about 30 minutes before leaving. When I returned to the room with my daughter, my wife had woken up and asked where we had been. I explained and she fell silent. Last night, her mother, my mother-in-law, arrived after traveling a considerable distance. The argument ensued, my wife considering me inconsiderate for allowing my mother to see our daughter first. She wanted her mother to be the first to see our child and didn't want my mother to visit the hospital. I found this unreasonable, as I had ensured my mother didn't meet my wife. The argument got heated, and although we made up, tension still lingered. Am I the idiot here? Come on, you know you're the idiot. How could you not be? You do know you're married to your wife, not your mom, right? And your wife is the child's mom, not your mother, even though she treats all her grandchildren like they're hers. While the new mom was unconscious, she woke up in an empty room with no baby or husband. This is some next level betrayal. 40 hours of labor, and you steal my baby while I'm drugged up, sleeping? What is wrong with him? And what is wrong with his mother? Mrs. I have 6 grandkids, and I'm the grandparent of the year. If he doesn't know better, she certainly should have. Does he think things will improve now? If I had a rocky relationship with my daughter-in-law, who had a traumatic birth, and knew she didn't want me there, I'd stay away from the hospital. I would abide by the new mother's rules and ensure she had a great first visit with her mom. Over time, I would do my best to create a stronger bond for my grandchild. WTF? Who does this? Honestly, I'm more furious about him bringing a brand new baby into the waiting room around God knows what germs. But yeah, OP, you are the idiot for disrespecting your wife, and you deserve whatever's coming. It's a really good thing you're so close to your mom. I feel like you'll be living with her again real soon. You just showed your wife who the most important person is to you, and it wasn't her. For some context, I bought my second home on the beach in Florida 2 years ago, and it's fully paid off. Recently, my sister had her 3rd kid. Her husband and their 3 kids live in a 2-bedroom apartment and have recently been unable to continue making rent. They're due for eviction by the end of next month. They plan on living with my parents for the time being and don't have any prospects to get their place again soon. So my mom called me up and asked if I would consider selling my beach house to help them purchase their own home, because I could probably get a similar home somewhere else near the beach for less than half the price and give my sister a quarter of it so that they could buy a house with enough room for their kids, since I only used it a couple of months of the year. I told her I loved my beach house and that the prices were only rising and I wouldn't give up the location for anything. She seemed to accept my answer, but recently, I've been getting tons of calls from everyone berating me for not wanting to give up a personal luxury so that I could help my family. Am I the idiot for refusing to give up something so my sister and her family could afford a home? So she can't afford a house, lives in a 2-bedroom apartment, has a 3rd kid. They can't afford the apartment, so they're somehow gonna magically afford a home? She has no plans to start living within her means and is having a tantrum about it. OP, you are not the idiot. She's a hole that you can throw money in, but anybody who makes the above decisions will manage to outspend any amount of money you give her. Is the plan for you to also permanently finance her taxes? The government is notoriously calm and relaxed about skipping property tax payments, insurance, utilities, repairs. And who's to say that this 3rd kid will be her last? And remember, you have to set money aside to put her kids through college. Like, when would this end? OP would just end up supporting her siblings' family. Honestly, OP, the next time the entitled brat calls to criticize you for working hard and being successful, offer to pay for brother-in-law's vasectomy so they can possibly catch up someday. Jesus, tell me you're the scapegoat without telling me you're the scapegoat. Your mom wants you to sell a home you bought with your hard-earned money and give that money to your broke sister and her husband? I get that your mom wants her piece back, but she doesn't get it at your expense. Telling your sister that you said no and egging the situation on is just chef's kiss, top-shelf idiot behavior from Mommy Dearest. Put them on block for 6 months. Avoid them during the holidays. Good God, the entitlement of people.